Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear, and I will permit it to pass over me. Where the fear is gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain.
When Amos from The Expanse says,
I wish that I could tell you I was freaked out, but I'm not.
Not even a little?
I haven't felt fear since I was 5 years old.
it's a deeply unsettling statement because it is an alien concept to most of us. We humans are built to fear. It's ingrained in us as our primal drive. It's a double-edged sword that can paralyze us as easily as it can drive us to our limits. In his book, At Day's Close, Night and Times Past, Roger Eckert writes that night was a man's first necessary evil, our oldest and most haunting terror. In all likelihood, the Night's Watch, not prostitution, is the world's most ancient profession, originating as soon as men and women first feared the darkness. Fear of what we cannot control, of what is beyond our senses, our ability to know and to comprehend, is the well for deep-seated terror. And unlike fears we can confront, that we can see, the darkness of night reminds us of what we cannot anticipate, happening when we sleep. And as we progress beyond campfires and caves, humanity has pushed back darkness. We've lit up the world with technology, we've molded nature to neighborhoods we live in, and moved into a modern world where we've lied to ourselves, that we can control our existence down to the microbes in our blood.
Critical issue is that the vaccines are working. If you look at
Death.
Death as COVID surges.
Death.
It's death from death.
Own death.
Death.
Death now.
We do not speak his name.
Like the Tower of Babel of ancient history, in defiance of our insignificance, we raise up gargantuan buildings to grasp the sky. We install institutions of science that settle questions of nature, and reach out to look, to touch, the vastness of space, where we look forward to meeting life beyond our own world. And as a species, we become so dominant in our world, shined our light so bright, that in our comfortability, we can lie to ourselves, that we are no longer afraid. But our primal fear of what we do not know, what we can't control, beyond our knowledge and scope to understand, lurks just below the surface. And as H.P. Lovecraft, the master of cosmic horror, put it, the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. While The Expanse doesn't bring forward many original concepts, the brilliance of the show is how it understands fear of the unknown can come in many forms. Fear doesn't need to be an actual alien. Fear can rear its head from what we think we know, even about ourselves. And by exploring how The Expanse teaches us about our fears, we can learn not just to recognize them, but how to overcome them. When we look up at the stars, there's a bottomlessness in the vast darkness that spans outward for a perceived eternity. And while we dream what could be, there's a fear and awe we feel when confronted by phenomena beyond our comprehension, whose scope extends beyond the narrow field of human affairs and boasts of cosmic significance. And while Lovecraft portrayed ancient godlike monsters as beings beyond our ken, I would include within this phenomena alien life in general. That we have yet to meet alien life, which, should we meet, may in fact supersede us, the way that we do the animals and insects of Earth, leaves us with a massive known at how The Expanse so effectively sets up its cosmic conflict in the first 3 seasons, with the protomolecule, a glowing blue plasma life substance which breaks down and reformulates everything it comes in touch with. It appears like a force of nature, one we've never encountered and so have a little frame of reference. Much like John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982, it's an ever-changing adversary, whose reasons for its actions are completely foreign to us. Does it have a purpose? Is it simply a living entity with the same biological imperative to survive, to spread, to reproduce? Is it a plague? Was it created? The endless questions gives The Expanse plenty of room to give answers, but the show is restrained with how it answers these questions. And why is this scary? Because the protomolecule disassembles us like we are nothing more than carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen molecules that make up the building blocks of our bodies. Like the Matrix, we are simply raw materials. We are rewritten and rearranged into something else. It makes our form, our existence insignificant, and worse, is we and the characters in the show can't comprehend the beginning of why. Outside the main crew we follow, it takes a long time to work through the denial of this reality. Our lives must matter, and to the endless infinite of the cosmos, that our lives flash like a blink of the eye, and yet have some meaning, in the face of the protomolecule, which is early on presented as nothing more than a seemingly mindless plague, an absorbing and reshaping parasite, we're nothing unique. Anything with energy is game, whether it's machine, animal, man. When it seemingly brings people back from the dead, when it evolves humans to the point they can live in space without a vacuum suit, when we learn it has sat for potentially billions of years, its immortality makes it even further alien. The fear of the protomolecule splits the Expanse's cast along combative lines. Do we work with the protomolecule for our own gains, not knowing where it could lead? Or do we destroy it entirely? We tend to hate what we don't understand, because we're driven by the fear of our own survival. And if we can't understand something that appears to threaten us, we have to act. And yet we have the capacity to overcome our fears. We do, by channeling them into our ambitious, greedy, even selfish belief that we can grasp power over anything in the universe, and thus tread the heavens no different than God.
I know you're trying to save lives. I am too. But we're on the brink right now because we keep reacting to things we don't understand. We're scared, we're hurt, and we're reaching for violence because we can't figure out what to do. But just this once, can we try something else?
And if the Expanse solely focused on the protomolecule and the unsettling cosmic scope of its existence, then the premise and reach of the show would be more abstract, unrelatable, and significantly less personal, as many science fiction shows do, and often many science fiction novels that are written feel almost clinical in their focus on the thing and not the people. But the Expanse also roots into what Carl Jung discussed, that our fear of dark has more to do with our fear of the dark aspects of ourselves, such as our capacity for violence and inhumanity. Our fear of the dark outside is merely projection of one's own lurking, shadowed soul onto the world. Now, I'm not a Jungian scholar, and I wouldn't pretend to be. I'm not going to dig into it much here, but I think The Expanse shows this in how the various human characters react to the outside threat, between each of the factions and the individuals dealing with this force. And while, as FDR puts it,
let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
The truth is, what we need to fear is how we express and manage our fear. Fear is not some kind of boogeyman outside of ourselves. It's not a purely abstract entity. It doesn't sit on our shoulders like Satan. It comes from within, and it spreads like a sickness through us and those around us. When we are driven into an impossible situation of survival, our humanity is stripped away in pieces, and we struggle against that return to our base animalistic state. What will we do when we face fear? The Expanse works through this challenge of how we react to fear within the crew of the Canterbury and then the Rocinante, and also between the factions of Earth, Mars, and the Belt. There is an ever-present tribalism in how each group views each other. Earth as the progenitor planet declares it the unifier of the human race. Mars believes it's earned its independence and resists what it views as the selfishness of Earth, that it cannot allow for anyone else to move beyond its borders. And the Belt are the traveling people, without a home, caught between these two argumentative parent worlds. While this is a constant tension, when the characters are first meeting and learning about each other, such as Alex being a Martian and Naomi a Belter, when put into unknown pressure scenario, these prejudices begin to boil up under the surface and create conflict. It's rooted in our human nature deep down. Pick us up, put us down in space, change the inputs, and you still have...
Understand the procedure now? Just stop a few of their machines, and radios, and telephones, and lawnmowers. Throw them into darkness for a few hours, and then sit back and watch the pattern.
And this pattern is always the same?
With few variations. They pick the most dangerous enemy they can find, and it's themselves.
Then I take it this place, this Maple Street, is not unique.
By no means.
Yet the crew perseveres and comes together despite their differences, with a shared enemy and enough time to learn and to trust one another, to reconcile the unknowns in a way that most other characters we meet haven't been able to do. It is a contrast when the crew, after spending many episodes building that connection with one another, are then exposed to others in the show who haven't. The final aspect of fear I want to touch on is the internal fear, what motivates each of us individually. The Rocinante crew are all challenged by this. Holden that he won't be able to save everyone, Naomi that she will lose this new family she's building for herself, Alex that he left his family behind and he must succeed with his new family and his new life, or else for what has he given them up. They're all human and struggle with human fears beyond the shared fear of the threat the protomolecule represents. And that's what makes them so relatable. But the brilliant insertion of an anomaly like Amos is what brings the alien into the human crew. Where the protomolecule is the external and abstract threat, Amos is a key part of the crew. And yet he is utterly different from them. He's unable to feel fear. He seems invincible. Without fear, there's no hesitation, no doubt, nothing holding him back from achieving what he thinks he can do. So why would fear ever be a good thing?
Man, I wish I could go through life without feeling fear.
No. You don't.
When we encounter a threat to our emotional or physical well-being, it triggers a physiological fight, flight, or freeze response designed for our survival from a direct physical threat. Without the fear response, we have difficulty assessing our safety, and we see Amos put himself into life or death scenarios recklessly.
Someday I think you and I are going to end up bloody.
How about now?
Especially when he's by himself. Whatever we're afraid of, our body will operate as if we face a physical threat, and this system kicks in. However, the modern fears are not as simple as fight or flight or freeze. Often we get paralyzed in between them, in a no man's land. Sometimes it's life-saving, but it's often the opposite, because many of the threats that we face day in and day out are non-physical, and maybe not even direct threats to our well-being, but we perceive them as such. Tragically, Amos understands his lack of fear is not necessarily a good thing, but he doesn't have an option anymore to be different. Fear is the root behind our spectrum of emotions, and by removing fear, he also removes the ups and downs of his other emotions.
Is this your messed up way of telling me you're sorry? Was it messed up?
He is pretty flat. He's more of an imitator than an actor of emotion, because his limited ability to relate and understand others leads to him often having to resort to violence as a means to express himself. Generating fear in others leads to a faster response to what he's looking for. And he is self-aware of many of his blind spots, but at times his condition means he can act when no one else can.
They are the enemy right now. We're the fugitives.
So he doesn't trust himself to make the bigger decisions. He looks to people he trusts to help guide him through these moments.
In case I have to kill you, I just wanted to say thanks. You made some pretty stupid choices since you've been in charge, but you were always trying to do the right thing. Came out bad. I mean, you were always trying to be a good man. Not everybody does, thank you. It's nice not having to worry about being on the right team.
And because Amos can act when others are paralyzed with their fear, when they're frozen between fight or flight, he's able to protect them in this paralysis, help them identify and work through and sit with their fears, and ensure they live to be able to condition and work themselves forward to improve and come out stronger.
You breathe in, you breathe out, eat, shit, sleep. You take whatever they give you, and you give nothing in return.
Now, the study of fear is an immense topic, so I've only scratched the surface here with the first few seasons of The Expanse and some of the examples that stuck out to me. But what I loved about it is that as I'm watching season to season to season, is how the show continually evolves this connection between the cosmic, the inter, and the external of human fear, to keep us, the viewer, on our seat edge of the unknown. The Expanse is a show that personifies our known and unknown fears, and it weaves them together. Are we in our lives no more than ants before an alien puppet master beyond our comprehension? Are we so small in the vastness of the universe that our fate is left in the graveyard of indifference? Are we so easily disassembled into our base parts that we are nothing more than the elements that make us? Or is it in the small steps where we face that, where we face our fear, regardless of our ignorance, and overcome it, and try to be something different? The Expanse treats its viewers like adults, and I'm definitely going to continue and finish this show, and I'm sure I will have more to talk about. But the key is that it doesn't sugarcoat the human connection of fear. It builds on it. It weaves it into the music, or even lack thereof, with visuals of the human struggle of what we don't understand, about each other, and about the unknown of our universe. But it also allows the possibility that fear is not just something to be felt, but it can even be overcome. Not to deny it, but to embrace it, to accept it, to understand that we're all scared. And by accepting and exposing ourselves, and to those that we trust and those that love us, with purpose and repetition, we can condition ourselves into overcoming it. Thanks everybody for watching. It's your BadgerDad Mike. Love to hear what you guys think about The Expanse of the show. Please try to keep it to the first 3 seasons. I'm hoping to finish the show before I get to my next video for The Expanse, but I would prefer to avoid spoilers for seasons 4 through 6. So if you can avoid that, but I really want to hear what you have to think about this topic and about The Expanse as a show down below. Signing off until next time.